In this video, we're going to be having a look at calculating using column vectors. Now, these are things that, although they might look a bit daunting at first, you have actually seen before. Column vectors typically are how we describe translations in the transformation unit. So a column vector talks about how something is moved or transformed from one point to another. The number on the top indicates the horizontal movement, otherwise known as movement in the x-axis, and the number on the bottom talks about vertical movement. Now, for this particular element of the topic, we don't need to concern ourselves with that. We're just going to be doing some raw calculations on these and manipulating the column vectors. But it's always good to have an idea what these link back to. So let's have a look at some examples. So we can use all of our normal operations on these column vectors. So I'm just going to whiz through a couple of simple examples. We've got two column vectors on the screen. We've got R and we've got S. R is the column vector 5, 2. S is the column vector 3, negative 1. So the first operation we're going to try is we're going to add R to S. So just taking the top two numbers from the column vector here, these are the two numbers that describe the horizontal movement. We're going to add those together and combine them, and that's going to give us a new value of 8. We're going to do the same down at the bottom, so 2 plus negative 1, which is 1, and then this creates my new column vector, which is R plus S. If we have a go in the second one, exactly the same sort of thing. We're going to combine the two like components, so the 2 on the top, 5 minus 3 is 2, and 2 take away negative 1 is 3, and so my new column vector for R minus S is 2, 3. In this section, we're going to have a look at multiplication. Just a side note, division isn't really done with column vectors, so I wouldn't worry about that one too much at all. But we're going to have a look at multiplication. So similar to addition and subtraction, I'm going to deal with the top element and the second bottom element separately. So if I'm going to do 3 lots of column vector R, I'm going to need to do 3 lots of the top number, which is 15, and 3 lots of the bottom number, which is 6. And that creates my new column vector 15, 6. Down here in example number 2, I've got a column vector S, which is 3 minus 1, and I'm going to want 5 lots of it. So 5 lots of 3 gives me 15 again, and 5 lots of minus 1 gives me minus 5, and that creates my column vector for this one. Here we're going to have a look at a typical exam question. So you are commonly going to be asked to do something involving multiplication, adding and subtracting with two distinct column vectors. So this is just a case of putting together all of the different skills that we've just looked at. And although this question might seem a bit daunting if you've not come across one before, it's actually relatively simple. So first of all, I'm going to take column vector A, which is 4, 5, and it tells me in the question to do 2 lots of it. Well, 2 lots of this is going to be the column vector 8, 10. And it tells me to take column vector B, which is 2 minus 2, and I'm going to want 3 lots of it. So 3 lots of 2 is 6, and 3 lots of minus 2 is minus 6, or negative 6. Now I've got these two, it actually tells me to add the two column vectors. So I'm going to want a plus there, and 8 plus 6 is 14, 10 plus negative 6 is 4. So the answer to this one, my new column vector, is 14, 4. Here's 3 examples for you to have a go at yourself. The only reason I've given 3 here is just to give you a bit of variation between using column vectors with zeros and adding and subtracting them. Pause the video here, hit play when you're ready for some answers. Okay, let's have a look at this one then. So the first one, we're going to need 2 lots of A, which is going to be 6, 8. And we're going to add that to 1 lot of C, which is 0, 2. When you put those two together, you're going to get 6, 10. Moving on to the next one, I'm going to want 3 lots of B, which is 6, 15. And this time it's a subtraction, and I'm going to subtract 2 lots of A, which is 6, 8. 6 take away 6 gives me 0. 15 minus 8 gives me 7. So my new column vector there, 0, 7. Final one, 2 lots of C, which is still 0 on top, but 4 on the bottom. And I'm going to add that to 3 lots of A, which is 9, 12. And when I put those two together, I'm going to get 9, 16. Hopefully you got all 3 of those correct, and if they show up again next time in your mocks or in the real GCSE, you guys are going to smash it. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.